All right, welcome back to the Balance Patch League Challenge here in Boston-ish, Massachusetts. My name is Jake Major. I'm joined by Andrew, or better known as Gerd, and we are in for a very, very fun round 4 between Kian Sean and John Lyons, who was featured on stream earlier.
Yeah, John Lyons was piloting a very solid team and a very good match in a weather war. He was operating with the Kyogre that was just barely able to clutch up the final match. And then Kian, who is also sporting a 3-0 record. So this is actually a win-in situation for Top Cut. Anyone who wins with a 4-0 record will be playing into our Top Cut, so it's going to be an exciting match to see. Let's go into our standings to see how everyone else is going to be faring into the final 2 rounds.
Yeah, so we actually see Kian and John right at the top. Those are our 3-0s. We have Anthony Londergan, Stefan Mott, Adrian Hurley, Chris D'Entremont, Ronald Ayers, and Rockwell Enyoa. So, you know, the big common Massachusetts names, and then just in the hunt, Jonathan and Anthony. So looking like a close one today. These last 2 rounds, I believe, are going to decide it all.
Yep, and it's going to be exciting to see. So let's move into our first match. We're going to be not first match. Our first player. We're going to be talking about Kian. He's going to be running a little bit of an interesting core. We have Zamazenta with the wide guard. We did see Iron Defense body press Zamazenta last time, so Zamazenta crown with the wide guard is going to be the choice this time around. You have the Regidrago with that Whimsicott Tailwind support. So if you don't have that natural immunity with fairy typing or even a good resist, that Dragon Maw boosted Dragon Energy is going to be doing so much damage to your opposing Pokemon.
Yeah, so not only that, but the Regidrago rocking the Terra Ghost Terra Blast. So 2 reasons for that I can see really. One is to hit Calyrex Shadow for the 4 times super effective damage, but additionally not being able to be faked out while Terra Ghosted. So doing its best sort of Dragapult impression here,
Yep.
but with that Dragon's Maw ability and being a special attacker, not quite the same thing.
Yeah, this team is very good against Fake Out. You have that Covert Cloak on Whimsicott to keep it safe from Fake Out. The aforementioned Regidrago with Terra Ghost, and obviously you have Chien-Pao with Terra Ghost too, so you have to really consider if you want to really go into Fake Out, if you even have it on John's side. I believe Rillaboom is on that team, so that's something he's going to have to look into. You also have this Amoonguss with Rocky Helmet, so opposing Urshifu or other physical attackers that make contact is something you're going to have to be worrying about against a very bulky Pokemon. And lastly, we have the Urshifu Water, that actually is going to be carrying Taunt. So it's not going to be Terra Stellar Focus Sash. It's going to be Safety Goggles, so against other Spore users like Amoonguss or Volcarona, it's going to be bypassing those. And the Taunt is really good at stopping opposing status moves.
Yeah, additionally, going to be looking to shut down a lot of those Calyrex Ice that like to sit next to Amoonguss, so kind of your way around that. And let's take a look at John's team again. He was featured on stream earlier with this team of Kyogre, Roaring Moon, Electabuzz, and the tried and true Firewater Grasses of Rillaboom, Incineroar, and Urshifu Rapid Strike. Here, a very, very offensive team with some very strong supporters in the Electabuzz being able to slow the pace of the game with Electro Web, Follow Me to get Kyogre out of any danger, Roaring Moon with that Tailwind, and I think a very, very cool move that's oft not seen on Electabuzz is Feint, opting not to use Protect or Taunt actually, just wanting to Feint and make sure nothing that can Protect to get out of these very few Tailwind terms that are afforded to it from Roaring Moon.
Yeah, Feint having that extra priority too makes it outpace things like Sucker Punch. Obviously, it's not fast enough to actually out-prioritize something like Fake Out, but having that ability to just get that KO onto a Focus Sash Pokemon that's gone down to 1 HP on something like an Electabuzz, which is, most likely not going to be picking up those KOs onto things like a Chien-Pao if it had not gone for a Terra Ghost. Something I do like about John's team, like you mentioned, it's the Firewater Grass core with that Electabuzz. It feels like a team from an older regulation that just slapped on Kyogre, right? Roaring Moon, not a very common Pokemon, especially in a meta with restricted Pokemon. It often kind of just falls to most of the restricteds. Calyrex Ice Rider is able to get a one-hit KO on it. Koraidon might be able to get a one-hit KO on it. But now John is trying to find this interesting way of getting that booster energy, maybe get a speed boost, Terra Flying Acrobatics, when booster energy is gone, actually gives it a high damage output, knock off, great utility move all around, especially with that stab damage, and obviously at the tail end, when you have that booster energy, just lets you outpace things later on.
Yeah, so John going to have to do a lot to stop this Zamazenta. With the wide guard, not letting Kyogre do what it wants with its water moves, because it only has spread water moves, John does have the Incineroar with Will-O-Wisp to try to mitigate some of its damage output, but other than that, not many options. So we are going to see a lead of the already Photosynthesis speed boosted Roaring Moon and the Whimsicott in the face of the dreaded Regidrago and Whimsicott. So Whimsicott here able to just go for a Tailwind, get that speed up before the Roaring Moon, and depending on how the Regidrago is trained, might be able to outspeed the Roaring Moon after its Photosynthesis boost, but the Rillaboom obviously threatening a Fake Out would force Regidrago to go for a Terra Ghost if he wants to go down the road of calling out a Fake Out, but he doesn't.
Yeah, I do like the switch. You can't really know how fast your opposing Roaring Moon is. If it's max speed, maybe the Roaring Moon does end up being faster. If it's not max speed, it actually could be slower than the Regidrago in Tailwind. But it looks like we're just going to be seeing a defensive pivot and a defensive play on both sides. We saw the pivot onto the Zamazenta getting that +1 defense, going to be helping against 2 physical attackers. Roaring Moon deciding to go for a protect, not trying to take that damage on that Dragon Energy or Draco Meteor from the Regidrago. We do see the U-turn just getting a little bit of chip damage into those Whimsicott, deciding to pivot out into the Incineroar, just trying to drop that damage output potential on the Zamazenta mostly.
Yeah, I definitely like the switch into Zamazenta here. Not threatened by either of the Pokemon on John's side of the field, resisting any attack that they wanted to go for, barring Acrobatics doing neutral damage. But with that +1 defense, wouldn't have done a lot of damage. Whimsicott getting Tailwind up on a turn where it's not an effective Tailwind is an interesting choice, but potentially fearing a Terra Flying Acrobatics, just picking up a KO, and not wanting to go for the Terra Dart into Whimsicott just to keep it around for long. So still a good play. This Roaring Moon can't be Encored due to its Dark typing, and Incineroar just switching in, also can't be Encored. But we are just going to see a Protect from Zamazenta here to avoid a Fake Out.
Yeah, we do see the Fake Out going to the Zamazenta, so trying to pin it down. Obviously, you can't go for a Fake Out into the Cobra Cloak Whimsicott, so that turn is going to be pretty null and void. Because of the Tailwind, the Whimsicott is actually going to be faster than this Roaring Moon. It is going to be picking up the one-hit KO. The Roaring Moon going for the Protect in the previous turn. Cannot guarantee a second Protect in this second turn. Would have to have Terastallized early to Terra Flying to really eat that Moonblast hit, but is that something you want to do when it's not your restricted? And obviously you can get a KO onto this Whimsicott, but then you're leaving yourself open down the line for other attacks to come through.
Yeah, I think if I'm John there, I definitely want to prioritize Terraing my Roaring Moon. It's weak to the Zamazenta's Body Press. It's weak to the Moonblast from Whimsicott. And Whimsicott not known for its attack stat usually. It's known for its speed and usually investing more in its bulk to have more staying power on the field. But thanks to that 4x super effective Moonblast, able to clear that Roaring Moon in just one shot, which was, more or less surprising depending on how you know Whimsicott.
Whimsicott, special attack might not be that good, but Moonblast is a very strong move, especially with Fairy typing, so it's very good. The Incineroar is going to be going for a Terastallization Terra Ghost, so things like the Body Press and Zamazenta are going to be doing absolutely nothing because of that Ghost immunity. Encore is going to be chosen, is actually going to fail onto Incineroar?
I believe that had to have been into Rillaboom to have failed, because on the prior turn, Incineroar did go for Fake Out.
Yeah.
So Kian smartly, unfortunately, it seems possibly clicking the wrong target there. Had he clicked it into Incineroar, he kind of pinned a situation where either Body Press KOs the Incineroar if it doesn't Terra, or the Incineroar gets encored into the Fake Out here, but critically, potentially misclicking those moves, and a Will-O-Wisp coming out onto the Zamazenta, which is huge for mitigating that damage output from Body Press.
So I do think that the Whimsicott, you were correct. I think the Whimsicott was going into the Rillaboom, assuming it was going to go for Fake Out, trap that onto the field, because the Incineroar could obviously go for something like a Parting Shot if it decided to, stay on the field. The Dark typing doesn't allow it to get encored because of the Prankster, so you can't go for Encore unless it had already Terastallized. So now the Incineroar can be encored into something like a Will-O-Wisp, which could be useful to keep it stuck on the field unless you go for a manual retreat into that Rillaboom.
So very good point there. Had Rillaboom gone for Fake Out, it would have gone first, and then the Whimsicott would have been able to encore it, but that is not the situation we see. Ice Beam coming out from Kyogre is not enough to take out this light-screened Whimsicott, but the knockoff from Incineroar is just enough to pick it up, as Kian is going to have a free switch into whatever he wants here, as the Covert Cloak on the knocked out Whimsicott is knocked off.
Yep, and I don't believe that Tailwind has pettered away yet, so that Regidrago... Oh, no, there it is. Okay, so now this is an interesting situation. Because Regidrago is still in the back, it doesn't have the Tailwind, it could be undersped by the Kyogre. Kyogre, I believe, has a generally higher natural base speed than Regidrago, but obviously we don't know what the exact calculations are. So that is a situation where Kian might just have to say, I might have to just deal with the fact that I might be underspeeding the Kyogre, or maybe I'm overspeeding. But decides to go into the Chien-Pao instead, really guaranteeing the fact that I would believe the Chien-Pao would be faster than a Kyogre most of the time, one would imagine. And it also allows the Zamazenta to do a little bit more damage thanks to that defensive decrease due to the Sword of Ruin.
Absolutely. So now, Kian in a situation where his double dark attacking Chien-Pao is now threatening same type attack, super effective damage into the Incineroar, a rare situation for it. As we are just going to see that damage come out. You know, Kyogre not super threatening to the Regidrago and back, and also the Zamazenta threatening a potential wide guard. Kyogre not wanting to move here, and Kian just throwing out the attacks, and even through the burn, the Heavy Slam plus Throat Chop is able to take out Incineroar here. Kyogre not getting away with its Protect here on this turn, as Kian calls that perfectly.
Yeah, so that's a good play from Kian. I believe John was trying to understand, you know, Protect is the safest play. You don't want to get doubled up into what you're restricted on the field, so deciding to go for Protect is good. Even if Incineroar does go down, you do have the Rillaboom to come in, have that Fake Out pressure, but the problem is both of Kian's Pokemon currently, the Zamazenta and the Chien-Pao, both have Protect. So you could just double Protect this turn, stall out the Fake Out, and then just start outputting so much more damage, or you could just decide to go for Terra Ghost to attack into the then protected on the last turn Kyogre to just deal that extra bit of damage.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the moves you just saw from Kian Lock-in, you know, going for an aggressive, I'm not going to protect in the face of Fake Out play, I'm not sure about that. Even if he does get away with it, it is very free. You know, this Kyogre doesn't have any setup move like Substitute or Calm Mind, and this Rillaboom can't set up in any way. You know, there's a free Fake Out coming out. Just protect. The grass just came back up on the field. You're not going to deal with that burn damage thanks to it. You're free to just let it go. And Origin Pulse coming out here doing a good amount of damage that could bring John potentially back into the game, but really not looking like it, even though Kian just let that damage come out for free.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. The burn damage is still going to be ticking down at 84. It's going to be a little interesting to see. You know, Kian's Pokemon are so low right now, but he does have that speed advantage with the Chien-Pao, but you do have to be careful of the Rillaboom. Grassy Terrain is still active onto the field, so that Grassy Glide into the Chien-Pao is definitely something you have to keep in mind. Protect on the Chien-Pao, going to be keeping it safe for at least this turn, but what does John do in response?
Yeah, so we see Protects come out from both Chien-Pao and Kyogre, so likely not a lot of damage going to come out on this turn. I would assume a Grassy Glide from the Rillaboom and a Body Press into the Kyogre are what we're going to see. So a Null and Void turn where the Grassy Terrain is going to offset the burn, but heal up these Pokemon just a little bit more as the Rain actually stops, which is very big as John loses a lot of water power for his team. As much as I want to say fire power, I cannot in good faith.
Yeah, now that the Rain is gone, that Origin Pulse output damage is going to be significantly lowered. And at the fact that you also could miss on the Origin Pulse, you know, it's not 100% accurate like Water Spout, so you also have to consider that your chances down the line of hitting consecutive Origin Pulses are not going to be as great, especially when 3 Pokemon are still on the field. The Chien-Pao is still going to be, you know, the fastest Pokemon on the field. You do have to consider that the Grassy Glide still could go into the Chien-Pao, tries to go for a double protect. Sucker Punch just going to be getting that decent amount of damage into this Rillaboom as much as possible. Grassy Glide going to be picking up the Chien-Pao, and then we still get to see what happens with the Zamazenta and the Kyogre.
Yeah, so with this burn, it didn't look like another Body Press would be enough to take out this Kyogre, if my eyes were correct, but they're not. Kyogre going down
Yep.
to that body press. It was at a little bit lower HP than I recalled. And we're not actually going to see the interaction between this Regidrago and this Kyogre's speed just yet, which is a very, very crucial piece of information for both of these players. So both of these players, I mean, know their own speed stats, but certainly don't know the other one. The only one who knows for certain if the Kyogre is faster is John. You know, is it that speed boosting nature or not? Only he knows, and only he can tell with certainty, is he outspeeding or underspeeding this Regidrago? But that piece of information is going to be conserved from both of these players this game. So Kian's still in the dark on this one, and John potentially still in the dark on this one.
Yeah, I guess there's also a situation where you could tell the speed tiers with Rillaboom, because I think they're relatively close in natural base speed. So, I mean, if the Rillaboom has like max speed, that's something you could use to identify that speed tier. But most likely, John has already realized that with the Kyogre and decides to throw in the towel, conceding this match. Kian's going to be winning this match. Not even using the Regidrago, basically just using Zamazenta, the Whimsicott, and the Chien-Pao to full effect and just absolutely destroying John's initial team.
Yeah. So even though John had a really good burn on this Zamazenta, just didn't have enough damage onto it to handle it. And not only that, but the Terra choice not going into that Roaring Moon may, I mean, whether it mattered a lot or not in the long run of getting out damage, being able to get off Tailwind in that game would have been huge in order to keep up the speeds, as well as the fact that the Tailwinds would have been staggered.
Yeah.
And then John would have had at least one turn of advantaged Tailwind. So what John's going to have to do now is figure out a way to do enough damage in this match. Is it going to be that Urshifu that can get critical hits on the Zamazenta? Is it going to be, I don't know, Electabuzz using Follow Me and Ghost Terra?
Yep.
Either way, the biggest damage that can come out is Kyogre and Urshifu because of those critical hits and hitting on the special end of things. But the Zamazenta is still threatening Wide Guard and just can't let Kyogre get away with things for free, and that's always going to be on John's mind throughout this match.
Yeah, I think going back to the no terrestrialization onto the Roaring Moon, I think John realizes that Incineroar is threatened by almost 3 different Pokemon on this team, right? You have the Body Press with Zamazenta doing significant amount of damage, and you also have this Urshifu, which has that close combat, could also get those KOs with either Surging Strikes or the close combat. So you have to be very careful with the Incineroar if you decide to bring it again, because otherwise it could just go down in one hit. So maybe losing Roaring Moon was just a sacrifice to maybe keep the Incineroar around longer, but at the same time, you let the Roaring Moon go down to a Moonblast and Whimsicott, which really didn't help Roaring Moon at all.
Yeah, no, Roaring Moon was dead weight in that match.
Yeah.
Didn't have to be, inherently. You know, on that turn 1, could have potentially set up its own Tailwind, but ultimately just went down very fast, and we're going to get into Game 2, and we're going to see the onus is on John to make those adjustments. Let's see what happens.
Yep. Starting Game 2, we're going to be heading to the Blueberry Academy battlefield, and we're going to see the leads. The Zamazenta and Whimsicott lead is going to be going for Kian, and now we see a slight adjustment. Roaring Moon is going to be sticking around for this initial match, but we also have the Kyogre leading the way.
Yeah, so Kyogre here and Roaring Moon here. Not a position that either Pokemon want to be in the face of Zamazenta. You know, threatening super effective damage initially on this Roaring Moon, but also threatening huge damage on Kyogre thanks to its much lower defense stat. But Kian also has to make a pick. Do I block the water damage that may come in from Water Spout or Origin Pulse, or do I go for damage with Body Press? And this Whimsicott on the field is also a problem. John has to make a choice of, do I Ice Beam the Whimsicott and try to take it off the field? Well, we saw last game that didn't do enough after a Light Screen went up. John has a lot of options here, and John has to respond accordingly. We finally do see the Terra Flying come out from the Roaring Moon.
Yeah, Roaring Moon decided to Terrestrialize into a Terra Flying type, so now it is susceptible to that Encore that the Whimsicott has, but it also gains that resist to Body Press, and just going to be a neutral hit on the Moonblast, so could be sticking around. We'll have to see how bulky it is. And the Dragon Terra is going to be activated on the Zamazenta for Kian's side of the field, trying to resist those Origin Pulses on the Water-type spread attack in the rain. Tailwind going to be used with the Whimsicott, trying to get that early speed advantage. Body Press going to be going into the Roaring Moon. Does just under 50% HP, which is actually going to be pretty significant for later on. Acrobatics into that no Terra Covert Cloak Whimsicott, going to be picking up the KO, so no longer will that get a Moonblast hit for the rest of this match, at least. Orange Pulse single target, it is going to be missing, so the animation not tricking us this time. It is going to be a complete whiff.
Yeah. So we do see, interestingly, that this Roaring Moon with Photosynthesis is still slower than this Zamazenta. So this Zamazenta either has a decent amount of speed, and this Roaring Moon just doesn't have enough. As the Chien-Pao is going to come in, threaten super effective damage on this Roaring Moon and a KO, as well as help the amount of damage that Zamazenta's Body Press is going to be able to do to Kyogre, which is already in very close range of picking up a KO.
Yeah, so the Roaring Moon actually deciding to retreat into the backfield, going to be losing that booster energy, booster speed boost that it actually just got on the first turn. Deciding to switch in the Incineroar, trying to decrease that damage output from the Chien-Pao by giving it an intimidated -1 attack. Obviously not going to be mattering too much into the Body Press Zamazenta since it factors in its defense stats, not its attacking stats. Body Press is going to be going into that Kyogre's Protect, trying to keep it around for the next turn. We do see the Incineroar do have this fake out on this next turn, but again, double protect, stall it out, get another Tailwind, turn up. You could be eating this next turn.
Yeah, so a fake out imminent from Incineroar. However, John does have an option if he has the Rillaboom in back to hard switch out this Incineroar, bring in Rillaboom, and then be able to force a fake out on a potential double protect.
Yep.
That would be there. And, you know, because of that Terra Dragon, yes, you're no longer taking big damage from those Water-type moves that Kyogre wants to throw out, but you are under the threat of super effective damage from its Ice-type Ice Beam. So we do see Kyogre switch out, actually, in favor of the Urshifu Rapid Strike, which I was discussing earlier that could be a good choice to go on the offensive of this Zamazenta, but because it's now a Dragon type, is also taking resisted damage from those Surging Strikes.
Yeah, even on those resisted damages, it's bypassing with a crit on those defense boosts on Zamazenta that it has, while also being in the rain. I mean, I was watching a regional stream earlier where a Rapid Strike Urshifu did 50% in the rain to a Raging Bolt on a resist. Like, the Surging Strike's Urshifu is just a incredibly strong Pokemon, so even on a resisted attack like a Terra Dragon, still going to do a lot. But we're going to see the Ice Spinner into this Incineroar, maybe trying to call out a Roaring Moon switch in, trying to reset the Intimidate, but not going to be the case. A double up into the Incineroar, going to be picking it up with that Body Press and Ice Spinner combo.
Yeah, good pressure into the Incineroar there, knowing that you can't just let it get away for free. You either have to, you know, it's either going to Parting Shot and bring something back in. If there's a switch there, let's say it's the Roaring Moon, you're going to be able to do huge damage with that Ice Spinner and then pick it up with a Body Press if it wasn't enough. So I think a very, very good turn for Kian there, as his Tailwind does peter out. So he might have to deal with a Tailwind from John from the Roaring Moon. However, we haven't seen the speed interaction here without the booster energy. I would wager that the Zamazenta is faster as it is naturally, but we're going to have to wait and see here. If John can get up a Tailwind, it might not be the end.
Ooh.
But with the options he has afforded to him right now, Kian has a lot of damage output.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. You have the Focus Sash, I believe, still intact for this Urshifu, so it could survive 2 attacks. Actually going to decide to go for the Detect this turn, trying to survive just another turn. Tailwind going to be used, so the Roaring Moon is actually going to be faster than both the Regidrago and the Zamazenta getting that Tailwind. So now the Kyogre and the Urshifu are going to be benefiting from this extra boost of speed. Draco Meteor is going to be attacking into this Roaring Moon, going to be dropping its special attack by 2 stages, which is not what you really want to see. Roaring Moon going to be sacrificing itself, but Healy in this match going to be giving itself and the team that extra Tailwind boost.
Yeah, so Roaring Moon finally did exactly what it needed to, that it wasn't able to in Game 1. Pick up a knockout on that Whimsicott, save itself for later, and get in a safe situation where it can get this Tailwind up for Kyogre to get on the field in a position where it can threaten huge damage now on this Zamazenta with Ice Beam, and the Urshifu can also threaten huge damage with these rain-boosted surging strikes.
Yeah, not to mention that John played this perfectly. The rain had actually just ended in the prior turn. Kyogre was able to come in at the right time, get that rain boost up for both the Kyogre and the Urshifu. You do have to be careful of that wide guard. Kian deciding to go for the wide guard to keep... Oh, no, it's just a natural protect. So the Rage Drago is actually going to be eating this water spout from the Kyogre, and Surging Strikes is going to be picking up this Rage Drago even on a resisted hit because, you know, rain just gives it that extra bit of damage on top of the critical hits. The Zamazenta is now fighting an uphill battle against 2 water Pokemon in its natural habitat. So now you got to find a way to pick this up, or we're going to game 3.
Yeah, so John, it's always tough to play around potential wide guards, but John having the moxie there to just go for a water spout, say, all right, if you do wide guard, I'm still going to be doing a ton of damage to your Drago with these surging strikes to a point where your Dragon Energy isn't as threatening anymore. And the Draco Meteor, you know, already at -2, wasn't doing too much. So I should be in the clear if I can get this Drago out of the way. And if the Zamazenta does wide guard, yeah, I'm not going to damage it. If it doesn't wide guard, however, Water Spout's going to hit it.
Yeah.
And I don't really mind that either. But if it protects, I have an opening on this Drago. So John playing that turn very, very well under the face of a bit of pressure, knowing that even if the worst case scenario hits the wide guard, he's still going to come out on top with that surging strikes damage.
I do like that Kian definitely recognizing that the situation is pretty much over. You know, you only have 14 HP left. Kian just taking that extra bit of time to really try to see where did this game go wrong, how did it get out of hand. You know, he's already up this game, but he wants to figure out how does John able to really come back in this game. How was he able to pivot in a situation? Obviously, that Roaring Moon going for that Terrestrialization might have actually been super helpful for John after all. Getting that Tailwind up really mattered because in that first game, Tailwind was never set up. So John was always playing on that back foot because the Whimsicott was able to get the speed advantage first.
Yep. So, yes, you had your speed advantage. He played through the speed disadvantage, got into his own speed advantage, and that was the name of the game, was getting your Pokemon in positions where they can do the damage first. You know, if I'm doing damage and KOing you, you can't hit me. Very basic Pokemon math there.
Pokemon Fundamentals 101. Everyone. So, you know, going to this game 3, it's going to be really interesting to see. We know that Tailwind's going to be a key factor in this game. So one would have to imagine that Whimsicott and the Roaring Moon are going to be coming back. It's going to be coming down really to how is everything going to get pivoted in. Zamazenta most likely wants to be either starting on the field so it can get its defense boost first. It doesn't really want to switch out. It most likely wants to stay on the field for the remainder of the game, so you have to keep it safe. Or it's going to have to try to come into the field later on, but is that going to be too late for it to do any damage if, you know, opposing Tailwind is set up, and now that Kian has a Tailwind set up, then you have to worry about all the damage coming out, you know, so.
Kian in a tough spot here, you know. He played game 1 very well, was able to get the calls right, but in game 2, John kind of having his number, you know, playing exactly how he needed to get out of it. And now it begs the question, does Kian change up his game plan at all, or does he just kind of play better around how John was playing? You know, does a Moongus come so certain moves are redirected? Does Urshifu come so it can taunt?
Yeah.
But the hard part is the fact that if the Whimsicott doesn't lead, Roaring Moon's just going to be able to get up a Tailwind for free. Even without the booster energy, we saw that it was faster than Zamazenta.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough here now that John has figured out a lot. In my opinion, it's going to be tough for Kian to adjust here. Maybe he's just going to have to click those wide guards. Maybe he's going to have to be a little more aggressive. I'm honestly not quite sure looking at it on paper, but we don't have to look at it on paper because we're going to see it live on video right now.
Yeah, we've seen John earlier on stream. He did decide to choose a different Pokemon in Game 3, which actually led him to win this match. Let's see if there's going to be any single Pokemon adjustments into this match. So another different lead for John into this game number 3. We did see the Kyogre and Roaring Moon in game number 2, but we're going to see the Roaring Moon and the Urshifu with that Focus Sash in game number 3. And it looks like Kian's just trying to stick to the script, and we got that Whimsicott and Zamazenta lead.
Yeah, so the question here is, can Kian do anything differently than what he's been doing to kind of get out of a position where, I'll say it again, those surging strikes, getting through that Dauntless Shield boost to defense, getting ignored from those critical hits. and a Terra flying Tailwind or even an Acrobatics is not going to go punished by Kian here.
Interesting choice to actually go for the switch out. And we do see the Electabuzz. That is going to be John's unique switch up here. With the Eviolite, will most likely start taking, less and less damage. It'll eat more hits from both the Whimsicott and the Zamazenta. And the terrifying Terastallization is going to be used again in this game number 3 on the Roaring Moon. While we do see a counter Terastallization for Kian, deciding to go for this Dragon Terastallization on the Zamazenta, so not trying to take those Surging Strikes attacks or those close combats from this opposing Urshifu that was on the field earlier on.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about the Electabuzz switch up here. Yes, it can redirect the heavy slams and the body presses that come out from the Zamazenta, and not even taking half from the first one, as a Max Tailwind actually does come out. So now the Whimsicott could threaten an Encore, but it could be redirected into the Electabuzz. If that's the case, yeah, Electabuzz is going to get Encored into the Follow Me, while Whimsicott is in danger of being KO'd here. Does Kian have something in the back that wants to take this Terra Flying boosted Acrobatics? Probably not. Could he just get a KO on the Electabuzz here? Maybe.
Yeah, I think this is the safest play for John to go for that Follow Me. Electabuzz most of the time going to be using Follow Me, every single turn. But because the Whimsicott does not have Protect, there is no mind games that need to be played, you can always safely go for Acrobatics into this Whimsicott, because nothing's going to want to switch in. If you have that Champow in the back, you don't want to let it go down to Focus Sash. So now you can just go for another safe Body Press, which actually, that is a max roll. We saw a min roll on the previous turn on the Body Press, even through this Eviolite, is actually going to be picking up that KO. So what looked like it was going to be a favorable trade for John, getting a 4-3 advantage, is now a 3-3 tie.
Yeah, so a 15% range there. As you said, we saw the lowest half of it and probably, or the lowest point of it, and now the highest point of it, it seemed. It looked like it did about 45% that first time. 55% isn't off the table for that. So we are going to see the switch back into Urshifu, and Regidrago hits the field now. Not quite sure about that one, given that it's pretty in danger of taking huge damage here. But now that I think about it, so would Chien-Pao. With the booster energy and the Tailwind, the fastest thing on the field and in this game is going to be the Roaring Moon. It would be able to hit the Chien-Pao before it moved, and an Aqua Jet from Urshifu all the same. Even if it went for a Protect, it would have had to eat the Aqua Jet, which it doesn't want to have to, thanks to the Focus Sash.
Yeah, absolutely not. And we do see the Protect on the Roaring Moon, so it's actually not going to be going for an Acrobatics or a knockoff on this turn. Tailwind's still active, so it's not going to want to do anything. And here we go. Double Protect, or Detect and Protect, if you want to really call it that way. Triple Protect. And what about the Zamazenta? Survey says it is a Body Press into the Urshifu. So really trying to get that Focus Sash gone, so that something later on could potentially just pick up that final KO. If it is that Chien-Pao could end up going for Sucker Punch later on. So right now, one more turn of Tailwind for both players, because we did see a matching Tailwind in that first turn of Game 3.
Yeah, so it's really dicey here. Kian has to pick and choose carefully. Does he KO this Roaring Moon, which isn't threatening as much damage, but is threatening another Tailwind? Or does he take out the Urshifu, which is threatening all the big damage? And we see a Surging Strikes go into the Regidrago here. Is it going to be enough? It doesn't look like it unless we get a very high roll here. No, that is going to be a Regidrago surviving even through all these 3 big critical hits. And a Draco Meteor is going to come out here. It does into the Roaring Moon, and that's not going to do enough damage at all. Had a Body Press gone into this Roaring Moon, that would have been light out for John's Tailwind, but no, sir. Another Tailwind can go up for John, and Kian is not going to appreciate that. Yeah, because of the knockoff, that Life Orb damage wasn't able to get that boost on the Draco Meteor. And the Draco Meteor, despite it connecting, just missing out on that sliver of damage that needed to get the KO onto the Roaring Moon. So like you said, Tailwind could be activated in this turn because its booster speed is still active. It's been on the field since turn 1, so you really are able to get that speed advantage for the remainder of the game. One would have to assume that the final Pokemon in the back is going to be that Kyogre, that restricted Pokemon that John has been using perfectly in this tournament so far. Right now, it's really up to Kian. Like, what can he do at this point? Yeah, interestingly, had it not been a knockoff, the Life Orb damage, thanks to the knockoff, the Life Orb damage wasn't enough, but had it been in acrobatics, it probably would have been no Reggie Drago whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, you know, hindsight's 20/20, but John's still in a great position here where Tailwind just went up, Urshifu's free to go for another attack, and it's likely going to be this Kyogre coming in to pick up the rest of the game.
Yep, there is the Kyogre Wilma, the model for paintings. I think that's a really cool, what's it called? Not a badge. What's it called? Mark. It's called a mark. That's a really cool mark. Ribbon. Sorry, my mistake.
So, even though I was saying it was all doom and gloom here, looking at it, it's still pretty hard for John to remove both this Reggie Drago and this Terra Dragon Zamazenta. You know, he still has to play around the wide guard, and he still has to deal with Zamazenta's damage output, as well as the looming Shin Pao. Kian could probably just go for a safe double protect this turn, stall out the Tailwind. Actually, not a safe double protect whatsoever because of Urshifu's Unseen Fist, but we do see a Serpent Strike and an Ice Beam go into the Zamazenta. Not going to be enough, but at the end of the day, Zamazenta probably going to be able to pick up a KO into the Urshifu here if that's the target of its attack. If not, yes, it is the Urshifu, so Kyogre's going to be the last thing on the field, and yes, it has full HP now.
Let's see what the Reggie Drago does. Going for a Draco meter at -4, I believe. You know, maybe doing about 20% Reggie Drago. Just trying to tack on that little bit of extra damage. Kian still has one Pokemon in the back that has not been seen yet, and 2 Pokemon on the field. You still have to consider the wide guard usage to let the Reggie Drago go for an attack. You could just decide to go for an Ice Beam in either slot, but they both also just have regular Protect, so you have to really be able to call it out. I think this is a pretty safe play, going for a double Protect. Get rid of the Rain turns, get rid of the Tailwind turns, and now we see that Kian has recognized that John has been going for this Water Spout, so that's something to keep in mind for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though John was looking to be in a favorable position, only having 4 turns of Tailwind and potentially a Sash Chien-Pao in back that can take 2 attacks could be the end for John. Water Spout coming out is going to pick up the KO on both this Zamazenta and this Reggie Drago. And Kian's going to be on his last Pokemon versus John's last Pokemon. 1 turn of Tailwind remains for John. And this last Pokemon in the back is going to make all the difference for Kian. What is it gonna be?
Yeah, and Tailwind's gone now, so you don't have that speed advantage to really get that first hit in. And it's going to be the Chien-Pao with that Focus Sash, so you're going to need at least 2 hits. I think maybe your only out is go for Ice Beam Freeze to potentially... What?
Ice types can't get frozen.
Oh, you're right. So yeah, Ice Beam Freeze will not work. So, you know, going for Ice Beam just to guarantee the hit, because obviously you don't really want to use a Water Spout because it's not really going to do that much damage. So Chien-Pao going to be finishing off the Kyogre with that Throat Chop, and Kian in a very incredible Game 3 finish is going to be moving on to a 4-0 record and guaranteed top cut today.
Yeah, I think John's bane there really was bringing the Electabuzz to the match. Not only that, but getting the crazy roll that we saw of about 45% into 55%. Obviously, I don't know the exact numbers, but
one would have to imagine, you know. So
within that assumed range, really, really changed the tide of the match. Electabuzz not adding anything really.
It took 2 body presses.
It took 2 body presses.
The important part about the Electabuzz in this situation is that it ate that Encore that was coming from the Whimsicott so that the Roaring Moon wasn't trapped using Tailwind. But at the same time, if the Electabuzz actually got hit by another Min Roll, the Electabuzz stays on the field, and the Roaring Moon is able to just stay on the field for another turn and be a little bit more healthier later on. So that extra damage that went into that Electabuzz really mattered, because then you were forced to switch something in.
Yeah, I have to imagine, had it been Incineroar, you know, it would have been able to handle the Chien-Pao more appropriately. It would have been able to handle the pace of the game with Fake Out more reliably. So Electabuzz may have been a decent pick, but overall not changing John's luck there as Kian came out on top.
Yeah, I think the Electabuzz was fine, but just, you know, just unfortunate scores of luck. You know, same could be said with Kian. He was just spamming those Draco Meteors. If any one of them missed at any point, you know, that could also change the tie. But, you know, that's just the calculations that you have to account for, and that's just how it goes.
Absolutely. That's Pokemon.
That is Pokemon. So let's finish up round 4. We're going to be heading into round 5 soon enough. With this match is done, we're going to see who is going to be getting in for a win and in our next match of round 5. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Get a snack. Get a water. Make sure you're hydrated. We'll be back soon.